Hey guys, this is Food by Faith, and today I am coming to you with my hashtag holiday treat dessert. Okay, what I am going to be making is a nut brittle. I'm actually going to be using almonds as well as raisins. So, in making a nut brittle, and the reason why I say nut brittle is because I switch it up in what nuts that I use. I make a lot of this all year long because I put it in my baskets. So you can use whatever pot you have, but I always use a copper pot. I find it's always great to use a copper pot or a heavy bottom pot when you're making any type of candy. Make sure you have your thermometer, because for this recipe we're going to need it to go to the hard crack stage. And I hope you can see that the hard crack stage is actually right there at 300. Okay, you're going to need Karo syrup, sugar, whatever nuts that you're going to use. Today I'm going to use almonds, and I'm also going to add raisins. And 1 cup of unsalted butter. And if you guys remember my last video, this is the butter that I was able to get from Lidl. They had it for buy one get one half off. So I'll go over those ingredients again. So we have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We have a 1/4 cup of white sugar. We're going to have a tablespoon of Karo syrup. We're going to use a 1/2 cup of raisins, and I'm going to use round about 8 to 10 ounces. I'm going to bring you in a little closer. I'm going to use round about 8 to 10 ounces of the almonds. I like to have a lot of nuts in my nut brittle. With each bite, I want my customer to, or myself, because I like it a lot, to be able to have a lot of the nuts in it. So what we're going to do, I'm going to let you guys start off with me. And because it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to get up to the temperature that we want it at, I'm going to bring you guys back. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to put our 1 cup of butter. Sorry for the pause. 1 cup of butter. I had to check. I was like, am I recording? 1 cup of butter inside of our pan. Y'all, this is too funny to me. And I'm not editing this out. So we have our 1 cup of butter into our pot. What we're going to do is we're going to let that melt just a little bit so that it's easier to mix in the sugar and the tablespoon corn syrup. Guys, I use a lot of corn syrup. So I buy it by the big containers. So let me show you what I'm talking about when it comes there. So we're going to let our unsalted butter, and remember this is 1 cup. We're going to let our unsalted butter melt down just a little bit to make it easier for us to be able. So I'm going to keep you guys turned around over here so you can watch me as I add in the items. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, before we take a pause, I'm going to add everything in, and then I'll bring you back, because it's about, like I said, 15 to 20 minutes of me constantly stirring. And it's better to use a wooden spoon or a rubber spatula. Let me show you. Or a rubber spatula. And so guys, I do not use a lot of metal utensils. The only metal utensils I really use are tongs and I have a fish spatula. But outside of that, I do not use a lot of metal utensils. And the reason being is because I have very quality cookware and I don't want to scratch it up. And so guys, we're adding everything in except for our nuts and our raisins. And I know that most typical nut brittles will tell you to add in your raw nuts while everything is cooking. But the reason why I don't do that is because they are easily burned. So what I do is right before we hit that hard crack stage, that is when I go ahead and I add my nuts and my fruit, or just my nuts. Okay, so a tablespoon of our corn syrup. This is what our mixture looks like as of right now. And as you can see, because we waited for the butter to melt a bit, it's easier to stir. And we're going to cook this on a medium-high heat. And guys, it takes a little bit of time, as I told you before, to get to that hard crack stage. But once it gets to the soft crack stage, then the process begins to go really fast. So this is not something that I would tell anyone to leave the kitchen and let it cook. When I'm making nut brittles, I go ahead and I turn on one of my Soil Family on YouTube, or I turn on a nice movie, because I know that this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 15 to 20 minutes. All right, guys, while that comes up to temperature, I'm going to take a pause and I'll bring you back. Hey guys, I came back to you a little early just so that I can show you something. What I forgot to tell you earlier is make sure that you have a lined cookie sheet, and make sure you spray that parchment so that your brittle does not stick. Now, as your brittle is coming up to temperature, it's going to begin to change colors. So you remember in the beginning, we were very yellow, and now we are at the cream colored stage. And by the time we are ready, it'll be a light caramel look that you will have achieved. All right, I'm going to give you a little pause as I continue to stir and bring this up to temperature. So guys, we are now at about 280 degrees. So that's right before we get the hard crack stage. And I went ahead and I added my ½ cup of raisins. And now I'm going to add a nice heaping cup of our almonds. And we're going to stir everything in. And I'm going to bring you a little closer so that you can see. But at this stage, things move kind of quickly. Like I told you, once it gets to this stage, it does move fast. Alright. And it may take your temperature down just a couple of notches. Okay, let me bring you in so that I can show you. And so that's what it looks like now. At this stage, you must keep stirring so that your brittle does not burn. Because it will quickly scorch and burn on you. And so you see me lean down, but what I'm doing is actually looking at my thermometer. And when you place your thermometer inside your pot, make sure that it is not touching the bottom of your pot. So as you can see, I'm going to lift my pot up just for a second. As you can see from my pot, my thermometer has a clip on it. And I use that clip to be able to keep my thermometer from the bottom of the pan. Because if you have your thermometer on the bottom of the pan, it will give you a false reading. Okay. At every stage of this, make sure, I'm going to turn you guys around just a little. Make sure you are keeping yourself protected, because this is like molten lava. And so now we are ready to place our brittle on our pan. Remember, guys, to be very, very careful, because this is super hot. And all I do is I kind of spread it, because I don't want it to be bunched up, and it cools faster this way. As it cools, it will get hard. And using the parchment paper is an option. You don't really have to. But for me, it makes it easier to crack. I just kind of lift the edges of the parchment and break it. Okay, I'm going to flip you around and bring you in. And so this is our finished nut raisin brittle. So you have to give it about 10 minutes to cool. And then it's ready to eat, because right now it is boiling hot. Remember, guys, this is at 300 degrees. So we're going to take a pause, and once it cools, I'll bring you back.